bring in the
I'm not trying to pick a fight with you. I'm just saying. Keep telling you your point's done, your point's done. See that? That's what somebody else did.
I don't know. That's on 11.2.
You've got dispatch capital going to public radios, then you have police training, fire training, dispatch operating going to records management. Wild flip-flop. That's what like that's just saving every last dime that they spend and going back over there and count for this year after we've already done a bunch of stuff. I'd rather have 30,000 rolling overtime. We've been spending 30,000 on something. We didn't have to raise the you can cut that down. Well, then that's a great time to bring that up. That's a great time to bring that up, yes, sir. Which comes first, I think, unfortunately, the budget first. What is the budget? Fire training is another 18,000.
All right, ladies and gentlemen. Okay.
Go for it.
Mr. Barker?
Here.
Mr. Ellis?
Here.
Mr. Farley?
Here.
Mr. Grooms?
Here.
Dr. Houghton?
Here.
Mr. Rich?
Here.
Mr. Goodwin?
Here.
Have a quorum.
Okay, so we're going to start off tonight with ordinance 2522, which is the moratorium ordinance in the work session. So this is a moratorium brought forward in a discussion with a citizen in a civics lesson. He asked about a moratorium, and he brought in some information saying that he thought I could just do one, and I told him no, I cannot do one. It had to be a vote of council, and we'd already did it one time, and council voted it down. So I said, I'll tell you what, you go out and you can find 3 people that says they'll support you in a moratorium, and you come back to me. I'll put it on the agenda. So he come back to me, and I'm sure that he feels like 3 people said they would support it. So I have no reason not to believe him, so living up to my word, put it back on the agenda. But now, you understand that when this moratorium goes into effect, it will be for 90 days. It does not affect you if you had a license in 2021. You can renew your license if you had a license in 2021. It does not affect a piece of property if that property was licensed in 2021. If you sell it and somebody buys it, they can apply for a license. That license would just continue on that piece of property because it was already licensed in 2021. So we tried to make sure that this did not affect anybody who had a license from last year getting renewed, getting their license renewed, and carrying on in the manner they carried on previously. Hopefully not noisily or too many people, but at least rental licenses. So with that in mind, that was how this come about again. It would not let you apply for a license if you did not have a license in 2021. It would not let you apply for a license on a piece of property. If you bought my house that did not have a license on it, you could not apply for a license for that piece of property until the moratorium was over with. And whatever shakes out, shakes out. All right, so with that in mind, questions, comments? Not from the citizens, thank you.
In my discussion with that citizen, I told him that I wouldn't vote for anything over 1 month because I think the way he explained it to me was that there's a lot of panic sales going on right now and people are afraid that the short-term rentals will be capped. And in order to beat the cap that may or may not come in, people are trying to sell, get the sale done and get the people to apply. And it's been my experience professionally that work will expand to fill the time allotted for it. And to give a 90-day moratorium, that means we're gonna end up taking 90 days before we decide if we're gonna do a cap or not do a cap. And I think we should hold our own feet to the fire and make some decision within 30 days and let people know to either be afraid of the cap or not be afraid of the cap and make the moratorium for just 30 days.
I can make it 30 days and I can make your life really happy by doing it in 30 days because we can have you an ordinance and we'll have a meeting next week to read the 2 ordinances that would come up about moratoriums. You'll have a vote on it and a week later you can vote on it again. If you just want to hold it to 30 days. The 90 days was to let it so it would fall for 2 different meetings starting in July and August. But if you want to do it in 30 days, I'm prepared to get started in 30 days. I mean, that's just my opinion. So,
I said the moratorium would last 30 days, that's my
but I said, but you want to get the short-term rental thing accomplished within the moratorium time, I can have them ready for you for next week.
Well,
And we'll start the 30-day clock.
As a citizen related to me, what's scaring people and what is driving people to sell, this is his words, not mine, is the fear of a cap and to
Yeah.
beat the cap. I would hope that within 30 days, the board could demonstrate or communicate whether a cap is going to happen or not. I'm not saying the whole ordinance will be done in 30 days, but I'm saying the reason for the panic will either be confirmed or not confirmed, and we should be able to do that in 30 days.
I'll tell you, I'm with you more than that because I told that same person I wasn't in favor of this late date. We're almost done putting this together. But a 30-day cap will get us to finish this in 30 days. And I'd rather that than having this thing drag out any longer than it has. This thing is drug out so long and so many people on different sides and arguing over stuff they don't even know about. Let's get it done. If we have to meet a couple times in the next 30 days, fine.
Okay? Anything else?
Oh, I spoke with the citizen as well, and I think that there's a lot of frenzy out there.
A lot of frenzy for no reason because, like I told that person, the landlord's not paying attention. You know, and that's not our problem. At this late date, we're almost done with this. But if we can speed it up even further, I'm fine with that. Other than that, 30 days isn't going to stop any business, you know, for the most part. It's going to stop that mad rush of people. Anything more than that, I have no interest in it this time.
Mr. Mayor,
So you'd have to vote, you'd have to,
make an amendment when it comes up. We'll have to make sure, as long as the 30 days is after our regular scheduled meeting. So if I need 35 days or, I wouldn't want it to end 2 days before our next meeting.
no, it would be, you'll have an answer before by at least your next meeting, so we'll have to count today.
Let's have extra council meetings.
That's what I just said.
And
Hang on, it's coming, just hang on.
The next regularly scheduled council meeting is July the 12th. Well, it's 30 days from the day would be July 14th.
It won't be 30 days from the day, it'll be 30 days from the second reading.
Yeah, 30 days from the second reading.
Moratorium.
So that would be the 19th. If we had second reading of the moratorium on the 21st.
I'm just telling you, it's
But
being
this-
moratorium, these 2 readings.
Right, so if we give second reading to the moratorium on the 21st of June, 30 days from that would be roughly the 21st of July, and just regularly scheduled city council meeting is July 12th.
Okay.
We keep saying the citizen, the citizen, the citizen. Okay, I'm just curious if the citizen's willing and if it's appropriate to explain.
Not now,
No,
not in the work session.
not during the work
You
session.
can talk during citizen comments.
Got it. Well,
You've already been.
I really don't think you had 3 people, to be honest with you.
I'm not calling him a liar, I'm just
You
saying.
don't have to, I'm
hey,
telling you.
Okay, what I'm saying is we listen to all our citizens, you know, and try to understand and go through the process.
So we're done with that.
Okay, so later on, there is that option, since we have received phone calls, we've read emails, we've watched videos, It's part of the process. And so I'm fine with knowing that when it's at the actual meeting, people will come forward like everything else and be able to be heard.
Yeah,
Okay.
he'll be heard.
Okay, thank you.
He has his opportunity. Anything else on that one?
I've had people that contacted me, a few things or items that people have houses that are in the funnel of being closed. They may be closed on the house, they haven't reached the final close on it. People that have been under construction that may not have rented the house prior to, but are gonna be renting it or part of it as a one-bedroom down below that needed a variance perhaps. And then I know there are several people that have maybe just constructed a house that are selling it that may want to sell it to, a short-term renter in the near future. Can there be exceptions for that?
I would put all that in the 30 days. You're talking about the bigger ordinance.
30 days isn't gonna interrupt any short-term license issues, other than people panicking and falsely getting one, presuming we're gonna have a cap. But 30 days will confine us to get something done in 30 days.
I don't need to get wagged to get something done. I don't need to get wagged to get something done. I'm not living my life based on other people's emotions. If this is what we set out to do, I like the process that we've been doing. So I would just encourage people not to let their emotions affect their decision making.
Desmond, this is something we've been working on while you were still off council, sir, so we've been working on it a long time. So if it speeds it up and we get it done, and we can make some decisions instead of dragging it out for the next couple months, sounds good in my book.
All right, let's move on to ordinance 1822, Mr. Pope.
Mr. Lutz.
Oh, okay. You mean you got one that's not yours? That's right. This is for Fielder. So this is one that's been about and requested over the years many times about filling lots.
It's come up most recently with some of the development around the island. The perception of some excessive fill in areas, and this has given us a tighter tool to regulate with some actual concrete restrictions. I don't know if there's any clarification in the letter I did for you guys.
What's the proposal?
To regulate non-structural fill and similar to the way we already regulate structural fill in our V-zone flood ordinances, and to require fill underneath the homes and the elevated homes to be contained underneath the footprint of the homes. You don't have a huge amount going on a whole lot, all the way from the middle out to the very edges of the
But
property.
it also is very specific about you can only fill a lot to the lowest point of the lot next door to you.
To the lowest point adjacent
To
property
adjacent lot.
or to the road, using those reference points.
So,
So we don't end up with.
So we don't end up with a mountain next to
under
our house.
well, I had concerns about it because in fact, one thing that saves me is there's a public access next to my house. But in fact, there was a house that was removed on the lot my home is built on, and there was fill dirt added. But the house next door to me was built in 1940, and they actually dug out to fit a basement underneath it. And this ordinance would cause me to build at the lowest common denominator, and I think we should encourage people to raise it up some. And all I know, I'm not a builder, but I know my house, and I know that my house is built on a foundation and it's contained. I'm not losing dirt to my neighbor, but I don't have a retaining wall that holds the fill underneath my house. But there's no issue. It just came up, and I had a short conversation with Eric. I prefer that this get tabled until the next month, and I'll make that motion when it comes up. I mean, I just think we need to. All I know, like I said, I'm not a builder, I'm not an engineer, but I know my house, and I know I don't have a retaining wall that holds the fill. I know that it slopes off to the neighbors. I know when I built it, that Mr. Lutz came out to make sure there was no excessive runoff to my neighbors. I know the county came out and made sure there was no runoff to my neighbors. I just think a lot of this is over-regulation. I know that it's a reaction to some flooding that happened somewhere else that after investigation, it wasn't caused by the fill of that particular lot. It came around the backside. And I just think this is trying to solve a problem that's not really there. There are regulations that say you have to control your runoff. You can't flood it to your neighbors. You can't shed it to your neighbors. And I'm not sure this is necessary, but again, the first time I saw it and the first time I read it was when the agenda came out. And I just think it might behoove us to take a little bit more time and allow some more questions to be answered before we take a vote on it today.
I asked for it to be postponed until after the zoning and the short-term rental stuff was up, because we have our hands full with those. So if we're gonna get the next 30 days, get short-term rental stuff over, I'm with you. I would love to postpone this for at least a month, because we need to do our due diligence on this, and we don't have time right now. We're spent. This is not a full-time job for us. We all have most of us have other employment that we have to do. I don't have time to go running around all day, every day, looking at all these different things. We need to space this stuff out. So I'm with you.
I did have a question on it. What defines excessive? Is there a measurable limit to that?
Impact. I mean, that's
Impact,
really-
okay, excessive being impact. That's up to you as
That's somewhat
somebody
of
to
a
judge it, or?
standard, but that's
Okay.
why we try to put some finite limits in there.
Okay, all right.
So, Mr. Lutz, have you defined this in your experience as a problem? And then this is to solve that problem?
This has been a perceived problem in a few different properties on the island, and I think this would be an equitable solution. I'm sure that, everything can't catch everybody perfectly, but I think it's pretty general.
Okay, so you fact found, you've identified the problem, you've worked with your staff, and this is what you're proposing to us. Okay, thank you.
You answered that question. You said it's the answer to a perceived problem. You didn't say it was the answer to a problem. So,
It all depends on which part of the island you're on and who's next to you and what they're doing next to you.
but there are restrictions now about you can't shed your stormwater to your neighbor's lot.
Yes,
And do you enforce that?
we do.
Do you do a good job doing that?
I think we do.
Then my question would be, why do we need this? If there are already restrictions, you're already enforcing them, and you think you do a good job, what?
This would give us the tools to tighten it up and make it a little more, with some finite rules.
Is there any reason why we shouldn't postpone this for a few months?
That's not my.
Anybody else? Next.
Next up
Thank you.
Next up is ordinance 1122, and this is an ordinance that would change the downtown commercial district to impose setbacks, eliminate multifamily use as an allowable use, and change the height limit. Ordinance 1122 was part of the package of commercial rezoning ordinances that you guys remanded to the Planning Commission in April. The Planning Commission held public hearings for those ordinances in May. 7, 8, 9, 10, 12, 13, 14, and 15 were sent to you guys with positive recommendations. The Planning Commission did not make a recommendation for ordinance 1122. They voted to table it to their next meeting. So that put them in technical default for making a recommendation to you guys. And so in May, council had the choice to either vote on it without a recommendation or wait until the Planning Commission finished their hearing. We passed it so that the Planning Commission could continue their hearing at the June meeting. The June meeting of the Planning Commission did not happen because of a lack of quorum. So the public hearing that they started in May was not continued in June. And so ordinance 1122 is before you again. The Planning Commission has not finished their public hearing. They are beyond the deadline to make a recommendation to you guys. So we're asking that you give ordinance 11-22 first reading tonight. So we've had a permit application and a DRB application for a project that would be affected by 11-22. Well, we're in discussions with Joe about the status of those permits in relation to the pending ordinance doctrine. And that's where we are. We're asking you to vote on it tonight to give it first reading. We've had a number of neighbors and folks who were affected by 1122 in that first block of East Ashley who've been at all of our meetings. They're here tonight. And when the planning commission meeting was canceled on May 2nd, when the planning commission was canceled, we let everyone who had planned to attend and testify to the planning commission that they would have space tonight to testify to you guys directly. Since the planning commission only meets to make recommendations to you guys, we'd like to skip the middleman at this point, let these folks testify to you directly so that you can vote on 1122. So we're asking, staff is asking that you guys move forward on a vote on 1122 tonight after you hear from the folks who want to testify about it.
It was pending after the first. We need to talk about that.
We can let Joe.
So you want to talk about being pending after the first public hearing? 1122.
Well, there's a thing out there called pending ordinance doctrine. Has been adopted by the South Carolina Supreme Court many, many decades ago. And it says that once a proposed ordinance goes to planning commission, it has a public hearing, that council or staff is within their right to deny licenses that would conflict with that ordinance that's in process. The caveat being, of course, that the ordinance ultimately has to be adopted. Does that explain it?
Yeah. Any questions, comments?
No questions, comment. I personally would only be supportive of 1122 if we were to exempt those non-standard lots, particularly the ones which are 35 foot wide by 149 feet long or 70 by 74, to apply the additional 5 foot setback to the side and front, just places a disproportionate burden on those properties to the extent they needed to be redeveloped in the future.
Yeah, there was actually a footnote that uses a percentage of the frontage. I think it was 14.
So that footnote applies to the side setback only, and it says the side set, in other zoning districts, the side setback isn't a flat 10 feet, it's 14.3% of the width of the lot, which happens to be 10 feet on a 70-foot wide lot. So changing the side setbacks to 14.3% would create a 5 foot setback on a 35-foot wide lot. It would not change the side setback on a 70-foot lot, 70-foot wide lot.
So that would be the easiest change when we get there.
But that, referencing that footnote would only affect the side setbacks, not the front setbacks.
Okay.
Any other comments?
Nothing. Go ahead.
I just have a process question for Mr. Foley. So we're saying we could bypass that process because of what you was explained, or do we have the option to go back and allow the planning to work with individuals and the process?
Yes.
Yeah, the council always has the right to remand.
And make them do their job.
Okay.
But
That's what they're there for.
But while you postpone it again, it's still pending. So the orders are still pending, so nothing's gonna happen.
I
As
understand.
long as they do their job.
No, I'm
Then we're going
just
through the
saying, so
process.
everybody understands, if you vote to send it back, then that's where it's still gonna be pending.
So that's an option.
And then you're gonna get back and you're gonna have to have the same conversation again shortly, but whatever. Okay, 1222.
So ordinance 1222 is another one of our commercial district rezoning ordinances. That one also went to the planning commission for a public hearing, and it passed first reading last month. We are asking for an amendment on second reading. Ordinance 1122 proposes to change the setbacks in the downtown commercial district from 0 to 10 feet for a variety of things. Ordinance 1222 creates an overlay that floats over the downtown commercial district. The intent of that overlay for properties on Center Street is for properties on Center Street to have a 0-foot setback. If ordinance 1122 passes with an increased setback for the downtown commercial district, it will then filter up through the overlay for Center Street and apply a 10-foot setback to properties on Center Street. So in order to properly achieve the goal of the Center Street overlay, we need to amend the standards of the overlay to say that there are no setbacks required. Because otherwise it defaults to the base zoning district, which is downtown commercial. And this is an issue that was created when we separated a new zoning district from Center Street, and when we made it an overlay and not a separate zoning. Because it's an overlay, it floats over the DC district and is subject to the stricter rules. And so if a side setback's not, or the setbacks aren't specifically called out in ordinance 12, they'll default to the setbacks proposed by ordinance 1124. So we would need an amendment tonight to add language to 12-22, leaving the 0-foot setbacks in place.
Okay, you want to keep going? Resolution 2422?
So resolution 2422 is to award a contract to Elko Coastal Consulting for $7,600 to do an island-wide mapping of a critical line and a bulkhead inventory. Stop here, Elko. Give me a hand. A few years ago, we passed a first in the state marsh management plan, which is modeled on the beach management plan. And a big component of our local comprehensive beach management plan is a survey of erosion control structures on the beach, and also there's a boundary, the baseline. On the beach, it doesn't move, so it's relatively easy to map. The marsh management plan, one of the top priority action items in that plan was to do something similar on the back of the island and get a citywide, at least approximate location of the critical line and an inventory of hard erosion control devices that are on the marsh side of the island. So this contract would allow Elko Coastal Consulting, who is our current coastal consultant, who wrote the marsh management plan, who's responsible for all the surveys we do on the front beach, to do the same thing on the back. She has an intern surveyor who's got some new technology, and he'll go out and create a citywide map of the critical line and inventory all of our bulkheads. We don't currently have a comprehensive map of the critical line because that data doesn't exist. Critical lines are done on a property-specific basis, certified by OCRM, but OCRM does not keep a GIS layer or any map of them. So this would kind of compile all the information that we have into one map that we could use as a resource to know where the critical line was, and also how many seawall, well, or not seawalls, they're bulkheads on the marsh. We currently don't have an accurate count of how many bulkheads there are, how many properties are armored, and where those bulkheads are.
But that map will just be designating what it is at this particular time, because it's a living, breathing wall.
Right.
So just because the map shows it, that doesn't mean when somebody goes to build, that's...
Yeah, they would still have to certify it, but it will give us an approximation tool that we don't have now. And OCRM certified critical lines are good for 5 years. We have not thought far enough ahead to know this would need to be redone in 5 years. But we modeled on OCRM certification. We figured we could use this map for at least 5 years and still be relatively close to good.
Where's the 7,600 coming from?
It would come from our beach and marsh. We have not the beach preservation fund. We have a separate reserve for
Marsh.
beach and marsh
I
fund.
figured that's going to here. It's not written down anywhere.
Is Dr. Elko scheduled to be here for the regular meeting?
I believe so.
I'll save my question for her then.
Okay, so you did good. You're down to one.
So the next resolution is a resolution by City Council authorizing us to prepare a greenbelt application for the purchase of 502 and 504 East Huron. And this is kind of a chicken and an egg problem. In order to get more information about these properties and to fully develop a purchase proposal to you guys, the actual authorization to purchase the properties, we need your permission to pursue the application so that we can start spending money on things like an environmental study, stuff that's required for the actual purchase. But generally speaking, 502 and 504 East Huron are two vacant lots that are beside our unopened right-of-way at the end of 5th Street East. That right-of-way is mostly high, but it has a ditch. Acquiring these properties would allow us to get the two lots adjacent to it. The lots are a mixture of high ground and low ground. We don't have a definite, Eric can give us a percentage. I can't tell you exactly how much high ground is, but Eric has a percentage.
It's not a survey accuracy, but I think it's about 85% wetland right now, which we would need to document that. It could be closer to 90%.
What are we gonna use it for?
So the Greenbelt money that we're allocated can only be used to acquire property for passive recreation with minor improvements such as trails, boardwalks, etc. So we would be acquiring these properties as green space. We can't pave them over and put a pickleball court on them. We can't, it's just for passive recreation and open green space. So they would be held as green space, open space.
What's the likelihood of them being built upon now? Because if they're only 15% high ground, there's not a whole lot they can do with it, so it's pretty much green space now.
I think the problem was OCRM didn't say they were critical so they could be filled. So the likelihood of them being built on is high.
Well, that's, okay, that's what I wanted to hear, because it doesn't make sense to me as it is, they're not going to build on them. If they can fill it in, then that changes
So that
things.
their critical line did not come up into there.
And that's one of the questions that this will allow us to go out and hire a surveyor to go mark, are these critical areas or are they inland wetlands from the Army Corps that aren't?
So after you get the survey back, is there a way to backtrack if we want to?
Oh, yeah,
Because say when the survey gets built, if it says that they can't fill it in or anything, then I personally don't want to buy it.
Yeah, so this would just authorize us to do a Greenbelt application. It doesn't commit us to accepting Greenbelt money. It doesn't commit us to buying the property. It just authorizes us to pursue an application. As part of that application, get all the information.
And I believe it's worth noting, if we were to receive proceeds from these applications, how much money would the city actually be out of pocket for the purchase of these properties?
So the property is appraised, I think it was $378. We have a current appraisal for $378. We have $150,000 in hand for a match. So that would put us on the hook for about $238,000. But that money doesn't come from the city's funds. That comes from our portion of the Greenbelt funds, which are being held in trust for us by the county and can only be used for property acquisition of green space.
So is it fair to say the simple answer is zero?
Yeah. No general fund money would be involved.
Okay. Any other questions for the work session? None here. See you back at 7 o'clock.